They said New York never sleeps. They said Times Square belongs to tourists, billboards, and billion-dollar brands. They said Christmas in America looks one way. Trees, malls, Mariah Carey on loop. They were wrong. Because one December night, Filipinos didn't just show up in Times Square. They took it over. They brought Pasko, and New York had no choice but to feel it. Not as spectators, not as background culture, but as the main event. This wasn't a parade. This wasn't a random holiday meetup. This was a cultural takeover, right in the most watched intersection on Earth. Let's get straight into it. Times Square, where every second costs money, where brands fight for attention, where cultures usually blend quietly into the noise, and yet suddenly you hear it. Filipino voices, Filipino laughter, Filipino Christmas songs, echoing between skyscrapers, not whispered, not toned down, loud, proud, unapologetic. Paroles glowing under LED billboards, families waving flags, kids born in America singing songs their grandparents sang back home. This wasn't nostalgia. This was presence. Here's the contradiction that shocked everyone. Filipinos are often called quiet, low-key, invisible immigrants. But on this night, they were impossible to ignore. People walking through Times Square stopped. Phones came out. Tourists turned into audience members. Because something felt different. This wasn't Christmas as a product. This was Christmas as a feeling. You need to understand what Pasko really is. Pasko isn't just December 25th. It's not one day. It's a season. It's emotion. It's community stretched across months. In the Philippines, Christmas starts early, and it hits deep. So when Filipinos brought Pasko to New York, they didn't adjust it. They didn't Americanize it. They didn't water it down. They exported it raw. Joy without permission. Music without a marketing plan. Togetherness without sponsors. And that's why it worked. Because Times Square is used to noise, but not soul. Here's what most people don't realize. New York runs on immigrants, but immigrant joy rarely gets the spotlight. Filipinos cook the food, care for the sick, clean the buildings, run hospitals, staff homes, drive the city. Yet they're rarely seen until that lucky night. That night said, "We're not just here to work, we're here to live." And they didn't ask for permission. They sang, they danced, they smiled like they were back home, even though they were thousands of miles away. That's the power of Filipino culture. It survives distance. It survives homesickness. It survives silence. And when it finally speaks, it fills the whole room. Let's talk about the people watching. Americans stopped and stared. Tourists asked questions. Strangers joined the singing. Why? Because joy is universal. You don't need to speak Tagalog to feel it. You don't need to know the lyrics to understand the emotion. That's why this moment mattered. It wasn't about dominance. It wasn't about taking over in a hostile way. It was about belonging loudly. About saying, "This is our city too." And that hits different, especially in New York. Here's another truth people don't like to say. Filipinos are everywhere, but rarely centered. They adapt, they blend, they contribute without demanding attention. But when they finally step into the spotlight, they don't burn it down. They light it up. Paroles next to neon signs, carols competing with trafficness, family energy in a place built for strangers. That contrast is why the moment exploded online. People weren't expecting it. They expected chaos. They got warmth. They expected noise. They got harmony. They expected spectacle. They got heart. And that's why it went viral. Because in a city known for cold speed and hard edges, Filipinos brought softness without weakness. That's rare. Let's be real. This wasn't planned by corporations. No Hollywood budget, no giant production trucks, just people, community, culture. That scares systems more than protests. Because you can't control genuine joy. You can't script it. You can't own it. And when people see it, they feel something missing in their own lives. That's why this moment stuck. Now zoom out. Filipinos are one of the largest Asian groups in the United States. Deep roots in healthcare, military, service industries, education, and yet still underrepresented. Moments like this aren't just celebrations, they're statements. They say, we're not temporary, we're not invisible, we're part of the story. And doing it during Christmas? That's strategic, even if it wasn't intentional. Because Christmas is about home. And for many Filipinos, home is complicated. Home is memories. Home is remittances. Home is video calls at odd hours. Home is missing people. So when Pasko shows up in Times Square, it's more than festivity. It's healing. It's telling second-generation kids, this is yours too. It's telling elders, you didn't lose your culture by leaving. It's telling the city, you don't have to erase yourself to belong here. And that's powerful. Look at the faces, smiles that aren't performative, tears that aren't sad, laughter that feels earned. That's not content. That's life. This is why people stayed till the end. This is why nobody scrolled away. Because authenticity beats algorithm tricks every time. Let's address the critics. Some said, why Times Square? Why be loud? Why bring your culture here? Here's the answer. Because culture doesn't need permission. Because visibility isn't arrogance. Because silence never protected anyone. And because if you can celebrate Christmas anywhere in the world, why not the crossroads of the world? Times Square doesn't belong to one culture, it belongs to whoever shows up. And Filipinos showed up fully. No apology, no dilution, just Pasko. This is the part most people miss. This wasn't about impressing Americans. It was about reminding Filipinos who they are. Strong enough to leave. Soft enough to remember. Proud enough to share. That balance is rare. And that's why this moment will be remembered long after the lights changed. Because New York has seen everything, but it doesn't always feel everything. That night, it felt Filipino Christmas. Warm, noisy, emotional, together. So if you're wondering why this matters, it matters because representation doesn't always come from movies or politics. Sometimes it comes from people singing in the cold. Sometimes it comes from lanterns glowing under billboards. Sometimes it comes from joy refusing to be quiet. Filipinos didn't ask New York to change. They changed the energy. And New York accepted it. That's not takeover by force. That's takeover by heart. So next time someone says, Filipino culture is too quiet, too soft, too invisible, remember Times Square. Remember Pasko. Remember that night. Because when Filipinos decide to show up, the world notices.